I think if THC was in a different spot nationally, THC beverages anyway, you would
Getting
only be talking about NA because the numbers are so insane, like billions. I see how much is going out of the warehouse, and it's mind blowing. Like there are stores in New Jersey that are selling more of this than beer.
Hello, I'm John Zimmerman, and welcome to Shelf Confidence, a podcast brought to you by the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association that focuses on the trends and innovations in the food and beverage industry. Today, we're talking with the team from Vintage Imports about Pennsylvania's changing beverage market, from grocery and wine programs and wholesale distribution to emerging categories like RTDs, non-alcoholic options, THC, CBD, and other adult beverages. Joining us are Michael Hodges, Dan Johnson, and Trevor Nare from Vintage Imports. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having
Good
us.
morning.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Been looking forward to this conversation for a little bit. It's a fun one to have. So I just want to dive right in and hear a little bit about what you guys do, who you are, the genesis of your company, and a little background, and we'll get into it.
Vintage Imports, we've been around 46 years now. Started in Pennsylvania. We're based in Pennsylvania. We service 4 states, New York, Jersey, Delaware. Michael's been here for 13. Is that right, Michael? 12, 13?
13
So he can
years.
he can give you a lot more history than I can probably. But Trevor and I have been here about 3 years apiece. We specialize in wine, spirits. The emerging categories like THC and non-alcoholic drinks are becoming a specialty of ours. We represent one of the first actually distilled in a spirits brands that started many years ago before the trend. But yeah, we are experts of all things Pennsylvania and LCB, and all of those can be complicated systems are what we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. So Michael, 13 years. Any good stories for us?
All of them, none for the podcast. It's just been a pretty wild 13 years if you think about it. Somewhere between opening up the retail licenses, COVID, what seems to be annual changes to the PLCB's working structure, direct delivery. There's been a lot to learn about, but also a lot of challenges that we've been able to overcome. That the 13 years does, in one breath, seem very short, but also when you look at the scope of change in the last decade or so, it's quite a bit.
So what have been some of those big changes over the last 10 or 20 years in this industry?
The industry as a whole has seen a big shift towards some new markets. I think everybody is familiar with the no or low alcohol shift, but also heading into THC-based, we'll say beverages for now, but it'll be lots of different things. And those are the most recent ones. In Pennsylvania, like I said, dealing with the PLCB seems like there's a major change every year or so, and also just kind of watching the global trends, whether we can bring new regions or new grapes to the market, or when you bolster a historic family producer out of California. These are all kind of continually changing challenges that we've been able to navigate.
I definitely have lots of questions about the CBD and THC beverages, but before we dive into some of the more exciting new trendy things, I want to kind of ask you guys a little bit about grocery and wine a little bit here. So when wine sales expanded into grocery and retail, what did retailers learn about this category the most? I imagine there was a whole educational component to that, and I'd love to hear more.
What people learned was how much they didn't know. I think it was the big thing. So when anybody jumps into wine and they learn a little bit and they study a region, they say, this is really neat, and they get excited. They catch the wine bug, we call it. They truly, you dip your toe and then you jump in and then you find out how much there really is. And I think the retailers, especially finding out how the LCB works, which is different than any other governing force in the country, in the world, really. It is, the PLCB is the largest purchaser of alcohol on the entire planet Earth. So you can imagine how much weight they throw around, some of it even accidental. So I think that was the biggest thing, was just, what do I do from here? Like, I want to make money doing this. And I think a lot of stores have just, even still, have almost just chalked it up to, okay, I have wine and I have beer in the store. More people are going to come in and buy the stuff that I know. And that's where we come in and help set these WPs. If I say WPs and I say WEP, that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of license that you have.
The wine expanded permit, that is the short term for the retail license.
Government and their acronyms. I was like, okay, what is this acronym? Okay, thank you.
If I start saying WEP and we start throwing that around, I know what I'm saying. But yeah, so they learned that, one, they don't probably have any professionals in their stores that have any history or background with this. And even if they do, if you haven't dealt with the LCB itself, you really are a novice again, no matter how much you know about those things. So there's quite a bit to know. We have a service that we do quite efficiently at this point, where we'll go into your store, we'll have a conversation about what your goals are. Because, like I said, some people just having it there is enough to maybe make sales and profits off of other things in the store that they know how to control. And we can come in and we can have a conversation, look at their goals, pull data from the state, set up shelf schematics with them, and get their profitability up. Because one of the things about the LCB is if you're a WEP, if you buy anything that's on a PLCB store shelf, a fine wine and good spirits shelf, you can only charge what they charge, and you pay what they charge. You get a small discount, 10%, I think it is, but you pay that back 2% at the end of the year based on your sales, blah, blah, blah. But getting SLO, which is special liquor order items, or direct delivery from an importer like us, can boost your profits from a maxed out 8% to 20+%, which is a gigantic move of the needle. Yeah, a little bit, but it takes a great deal of understanding. That's how we've had great success in just our know-how. Just go in and say, well, here's what you should do, and they're like, well, I would have had no idea, because hiring somebody and finding somebody to do all that can be very costly. Restaurants who do it, they make a lot of money putting together these wine programs in a liquor store, or a wine store, in a grocery store, or wherever it happens to be. Retail spot is no different. Like, you're building a program and you're gaining traction and visibility and all these things. So
sure, please.
It's truly, from my experience, coming predominantly from California, seeing the change. I came out here after grocery stores got their licensing. So I didn't get to see the transition too much, but I am certainly seeing the aftermath of that. And, in California, it's more about, connections you have directly with wineries and directly with your market than it is anything else. The wine knowledge is sort of already built in there because they've been doing it for so long. And then there's certainly no government aspects involved. So here it's really a sort of a 1-2 punch on, a grocery store or a WEP, starting or continuing to create success, where maybe they don't know anything about wine, and then certainly learning how to navigate the PLCB and loop and all the laws and hoops you have to jump through. So it's to Dan's point, it's definitely, they learned what they don't know.
No, I hear you on that, Trevor. I grew up in Florida, so like the liquor laws down there are, let's just say, a little laxer than Pennsylvania, to say the least. And it was just funny. Like, I was in Philadelphia when that rule came into effect, and people were like literally dancing down the street that they could go get stuff out of the Acme. And it was just like, brave new world, So yeah, it was quite a transition. But so what are those questions? Like, you go into these stores and people, I'm sure, have a load of questions that they ask you right off the bat, because they're coming at this, I imagine, cold in a lot of ways. Like, what do those questions usually look like?
Well, some of them are really trying to figure out what wine is. Again, if they don't have a professional on staff, and you don't drink wine or have a lot of experience with it, it's not tuna cans and Triscuits that don't really change. They don't. If you see a new Triscuit box, a new marketing campaign, that is a massive deal. But in wine, it has to come from a certain time and a certain place and a certain producer. There's so much involved in specifying wine as a product that there are almost no other products in a grocery store that need that much specification. You have to know, if you're talking to a customer and you want their loyalty and you want them to come back and choose you, you need to know that Mosel's in Germany, that Napa is a magic 4-letter word. You need to know that Spanish reds are basically mostly Tempranillo. Like, there's a lot of work that and background that goes into this, that is not just stacking out evaporated milk and egg cartons. So to speak more directly to what they didn't know how complex this product was. Not even beer beer isn't even close. You don't have a when to a beer. There's no vintage. There's no determination where those grains came from. But in grapes, you have to know when they were grown, who grew them, where they came from. And that complexity was, I think, a huge shock, and still is a huge shock to a lot of retailers.
That makes a ton of sense. So you mentioned the tuna and the Triscuits. What does pair well with tuna and Triscuits?
Probably Riesling. When in
When
doubt.
in doubt, sparkling wine.
Yeah, I was
There
gonna
you go.
say
Okay. All right.
it
I'm
depends
learning.
on if you like mayo like me, and you're gonna slather that with mayo, then you're looking at champagne.
Okay.
There you
All
go.
right. Now we're talking. This is important. I sometimes will eat tuna and Triscuits. I like to pair correct. So what separates a good wine program from just content on the shelf?
I think purpose and having
Okay.
some kind of goal, and that's industry wide, from a winery to have a goal of to who you're trying to capture, whose attention you're trying to get. Same as in a restaurant, what pairs with your food, who are you trying to get in there, who are you trying to get. And for a retail spot, you absolutely have to know your neighborhood, your demographic, your zip code, and what, not necessarily only what people want, but what they don't know they want yet, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So industry trends, and there's just a million little things. In restaurants, there's a lot of places that you go into and they're like, oh, I make money on my food. The wine's just a thing. And you're like, oh, you're missing 40% of your income here. I think retail in Pennsylvania is kind of starting to understand it too. Like, it's not just a little shop. You could really make some money doing this, and it needs to be a part of your whole program.
I would add to that, purpose certainly. Also variety. Just like with tuna and Triscuits, you got to have your, bumblebee tuna and whatever, but then you have to have, the cool, locally sourced, dolphin safe, kind of whatever option for that is. So same thing with wine. It's really important to have your kind of your big staple brands and your, easy grabs for everybody. But depending on your neighborhood, you might need some more specific items as well for those people who are, maybe more educated or looking for something different. That just comes with, again, knowing your market.
No matter who you are, where you're at, there's a fine wine and good spirits nearby. So you're also now competing with the state, and a lot of people are putting the same things on their shelf as they see at the LCB, and so it's cannibalized in a sense. So that's a whole another facet to the whole thing.
I can see that. Yeah, knowing your market, understanding what you're trying to sell. I mean, so how do you make this stuff more approachable? Like, obviously, this stuff can be a little intimidating to the uninitiated. Is there some tricks to how you make this more approachable?
Drink.
Drink. Okay, I'm into it.
Yeah,
No,
that's the best way to learn about wine is to drink wine. That's 1,000% accurate.
a large part of our job and, a good portion of our time through a given month is, offering staff trainings and in-store tastings at these different WEPs. And, if they bring in a new product, it's important that, we get in there with some, obviously some point of sale stuff where, prints and shelf talkers and things like that, but setting up a table and bringing in some of these wines and offering to the consumers, and try to hit those peak hours where you can get these wines in front of your the guests of that area, and hopefully have them learn something new and pick up a new favorite wine.
Well, if you guys ever need a guinea pig for your wines, I just want to volunteer my services. I'm here to help. I just want to throw that out there. So,
We'll
so
have you
how's
to
better?
our sorry, we'll have you
No,
to
no, please. Yeah.
our grand portfolio tasting in September, and you will get to taste hundreds of wines.
Well, you send me that calendar invite, I will be there.
I will absolutely. When it gets closer, I will absolutely. You'll be on the list.
Awesome. So, how has beverage wholesaling changed as retailers, restaurants, suppliers, and consumers have gotten more sophisticated? Obviously, there's been changes in this industry. The big thing I'm curious about is the wholesaling too.
Everything changes all the time. Laws. Right now, we're dealing with tariffs. We
Mm,
bonded a warehouse so we can control that cost a little bit. As an importer, especially, um, there are many different variables in getting the wine for the right price. So it's not just negotiating with the vineyards. We are very lucky because we are 46 years old and we have some relationships that are that old. We like to tell the story of John Conover, who owns Plump Jack. He used to stay on Paul Zintek, the owner of our company, when he would come to town. I mean, this is a very established wine brand now. The wines are $100 a bottle, wholesale cost. And they have a really, really great following. Everybody knows Plump Jack Cabernet. That's just a thing. It's a Napa. It helped create Napa and helped put Napa on the map, 10 years after it was kind of born, if you want to say that. There's a lot of history there. But John used to stay on Paul Zintek's couch. That's, those kind of relationships, you can't buy that. You can't go to a vineyard and visit and say, I'd like to bring you into Delaware, PA, New Jersey, and New York, and somebody's like, oh yeah, sure. So I think a lot of it for us, as these tides have risen and fallen, we've really leaned heavily on that, and the fact that we've been doing this for so long, so successfully.
Success in the wholesaling in general, recent or not, just is keeping your knees bent and ready to jump at opportunity for the right one. And the idea that brands will come and go, it's a agricultural product at the end of the day. And so if grandparents were successful spinning up a brand and working hard and bringing a product to the market and succeeding, that doesn't mean children or grandchildren are willing to jump in line and become farmers as well. And
Sure.
so that's a pretty natural progression in a lot of estate wine producers. That means they will be disappearing or being bought up or being bought out, or the label will be bought, but the land will be sold. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that
Yeah.
brands kind of come and go. And I think one of the best parts of vintage is that we are small enough to be nimble and not only recover from losses, but also be ready to jump at opportunities as well.
So you mentioned the tariffs a little bit there. So how has that impacted what you guys are doing? You obviously do a lot of importing. I could imagine this has been an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just adds a whole 20% for the most part in your overhead. So every wine that cost you $10 to get here is now costing you $12 to get here. And the ocean still moves the same way. It's not like they're using new boats or anything. It's just a
Big blue watery road.
Yeah, yeah. It's just an added expense to everything. So, and I mean, yeah, you have to be creative and get around that. And a lot of people are quick to just build it into their cost or add. I know this is kind of a good analogy. When direct delivery started, a lot of people were charging like gas prices and things like that because they were still finding out how to deliver that. And we just happened to have many trucks before that started. We've always been ahead of the game in some ways, and I could go on about those, but they'd be a little bit more boring. Yeah, with the tariffs, like I said, we bonded a warehouse. That's not easy or cheap to do, but it allows us to pay the tariffs we pull out of the warehouse rather, so we can take advantage of the strength of the euro, which is, I mean, that's its own thing. Like that's a whole other variable when things change. Different. I mean, politics and other countries are affected wildly. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, across the board, it's not just wine. I mean, everybody's been hit by tariffs, but if you take apart what is actually in the product you're buying, there's paper and glue for the label, there's TTB regulations, there's corks and aluminum closures and foil, all those things, and the glass itself, the heaviest
Glass
part
is
of
a big one, yeah.
the wine. All those things come from different parts of the world. And you talk to any supplier about any product they create, and chances are they're part of a global chain. And so to imagine that $2 on that $10 bottle was tariffs, the bottle is also going to become more expensive. So it's not just the tariffs, it's getting everything pieced together will also be more expensive. I mean,
those
it's
knock-ons,
yeah.
There's a lot of textiles involved in wine. I remember the glass shortage, that was like maybe 21. That was a big deal too. I mean, people use glass for all kinds of different things. It's not just wine bottles. So no matter how long you've had that juice in a barrel and you really needed to get it out and put it in a bottle, if you can't get the glass, you can't get the glass. And like Michael said, this is a agricultural product. So there is absolutely a shelf life. Not every wine is meant to be laid down for many years either. Some of that's meant to get out there into the market and drank quickly, or else, again, you're sitting on a product that's no good anymore.
And not drinking a lot of 20-year-old New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But to build on the history of our company and the relationships that we've been able to build in that time, our owner and our executive team, they've shared bread with these people. And when tariffs really started to spike, they were able to pick up the phone and kind of work out some ways where we can help our consumer and our end buyer. And, if we take a little bit of hit, a couple cents on that tariffs, and the supplier takes a couple hits on the profit as well, we get to sort of level out that price to the end consumer a little bit. And that's something that not a lot of companies have the ability to do.
That's important to be flexible and creative during trying
nimble,
times.
yeah.
Nimble.
There
you
is,
go. Yeah.
Nimble is the word. Hodges said it.
That's
That's a great.
I like that. So So what beverage trends do you guys not expect to take off, but somehow did? We're talking about wines, all these things, but there's got to be some trends that you saw, and you're like, what is happening here? Oh,
Yeah,
I see some
man.
faces over there, Michael.
Nobody thought Malbec. Nobody thought Malbec in Argentina would last 30 years. New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, again, nobody would have thought. But some of those things are. Trevor said it the other day. I don't think I never thought non-alcoholic would be as
Right?
big a category as big. I mean, it's still growing. It's bonkers.
I'm
It's
blown away by that. Like you see it in the news all the time about how younger generations are drinking less, and I'm sure you guys have some thoughts on that. I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't even seen even close to what this category is going to be. I mean, just if you look at, when I first started bartending, if you wanted a non-alcoholic beer, I think I might have had some
Class
stale
Holler.
case of St.
Oh,
Paulie's
duels.
Yeah,
back,
right. Yeah, all
or
duels.
or
Yeah.
a duels, yeah, and that was really it, and then with Heineken Zero and Guinness Zero, and you have all of these huge brands coming out with these NAs on the beer side of things, and it's really just now spilling over into wine, and it's in its infancy, truly. So I think it'll be pretty impressive over the next couple of years what they're able to produce, and control the alcohol content as well.
So
Yeah,
do you think? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
the growth of that has only been overshadowed by the THC. I think if THC was in a different spot nationally, the beverage THC beverages anyway,
Getting
you would
there.
only be talking about NA because the numbers are so insane, like billions. But it's 500 million. I think it's 500 million for that.
Still a lot.
But but the percentage growth is like wildly over any other category, even tequila, which is at a gigantic rise still. But for speaking of NA, so we've tasted through many, many products, and obviously any kind of time a trend peaks like that or shows up on everybody's radar, everybody's going to try to make an NA wine. And we
Grape
purchased our
juice.
NA wines. Yeah, it's what we're finding is just to show you how new of a trend it is that. So we buy our NA wine from winemakers who are already producing wine. Um, so these are experts in wine, and wine is something that arguably has been perfected. I think it's a Walt Whitman quote, actually, that wine is one of the things we've perfected. We've done it it's been done for 8,000 years now. Like we've gotten really good at it. In a wine, or not every, but of many of our different producers who already have been producing wine for, some of them generationally for several generations, are still all doing it differently. Like they're using different processes to remove the alcohol from the wine, which is bonkers to me that
Yeah.
that's just how new it is and growing like it is, and with all these learning curves, it's a very interesting. I don't know if I had a point there or not, but it's a very
It's still
interesting.
interesting. I didn't even know that there was multiple processes. I never even thought about
Yeah,
it. I don't
and
drink a lot
none
of
of them,
NA wine,
none
so
of them, from what I've heard, none of them are like this is the only way to do it. Nobody
huh.
says that. Everybody is still, and people who would absolutely say that about winemaking and different, barrel programs and whatever. This is the only way to make sure. People who would probably say that about wine just because they've gotten so good at their uh, traditional style of wine are not married to those different processes just because everybody's
It's
still
still
learning.
very experimental. You
Yeah.
have spinning cone method, you have reverse osmosis method, you have all these kind of crazy things that people are doing, and even when we hear some of these winemakers speak to it, as Dan's saying, he's like, if we're going to make Chardonnay, this is it. And these people are like, oh yeah, I don't know, we just grew some grapes and we're experimenting. We did it this way last year. We're doing it this way this year, and they're kind of striving towards that perfection rather than capitalizing on what they already know.
So
That's
that
interesting. Yeah.
trend I think will grow more once the products are only going to get better.
Well,
We tasted
yeah.
a bunch as a company, we tasted a ton of different wines, market leaders and these different things. And we have some very, very good juice in that category. And not many people do. Well, there is a lot of tough to drink stuff out there, which was great for us. Like we had a lot more confidence in our products after things like that. But yeah, that's only going to get better. So I think that category, and there's new spirits that people are making and things like that. We have a new RTD cans of a Paloma and a Margarita and a Ranch Water so we represent not to get off on a tangent here, but
Tangent away.
R.A. Walker, who owns Ransom Distillery, stopped drinking several years ago. I think it's about 10, 12 years ago, and started vacuum stilling spirits, so he could still make what he loves to make and drink what he likes to drink without the alcohol. So this was many, many years before the trend started. So this is another brand we represent that just happened to be, and we've been with him forever. So predates the trend. So and he's coming up. He came up with it's tamarind that he uses in to make a tequila, non-alcoholic tequila. So which is I remember tasting that for the first time, thinking, "There's no way they're gonna." Because I love tequila. There's no way they're gonna. How would you do this? And it is one of those where I was proven wrong that they did. But those are the kind of things that are driving that industry. And there's just not many people like that around that are just geniuses in their craft to do something that complicated and that tough.
Yeah, the innovation of school, there's obviously some science that goes into this, but like
Sure.
this is kind of a broader question, but like what is driving some of this change? I mean, like we hear it in the news, people talk about it, but like it's happening. But like what is driving this change? Do you know?
I think health has been the biggest. So what we find is that it's not a lot of people who can't drink anymore. We're not seeing as much of that, which is where when all this began a few years ago. That's where my mind naturally went, was, oh, if you can't drink anymore, but you want to have a wine at a wedding or whatever. Now this is a whole generation of people who just are trying to drink a lot less, or break their night up if they go out with friends or whatever. Early 20s, going out with your friends that can last hours, having a couple glasses of wine, and then switching to an NA wine for an hour or whatever it may be. But I think health has been, from what I've heard, the most influential thing for younger drinkers.
Fascinating. It makes sense. When I was that age, I was drinking Four Locos, so we've come a long way, I guess.
Yeah. That's probably answers the question of things that I didn't think would take off that took off. That was one. Yeah, I didn't.
Like, how much caffeine and alcohol can I squeeze into one can? Yeah. Anyway,
all of it.
It's
Your
a lot.
liver doesn't want
to
tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they redid the chemistry on them after a while because they were too boosted. Yeah, I was in the early phase of that. Anyway, back in the day. But yeah, so we definitely wanted to talk about this new trend that's coming out. I was very curious about this. So like the THC and CBD beverages are getting a lot of attention. Obviously states like New Jersey, New York, Delaware are a little ahead of Pennsylvania on some of this stuff. So I'd love to know like your thoughts on these trends, what those other states are doing.
Yeah, the idea that this is probably going to be around long term. Regardless, that Pennsylvania hasn't quite gotten kind of regulation together yet. But looking at the other states, so I attended a presentation from a THC lobbyist last fall, and they're trying to get it regulated federally. And it's not even a hurdle, just one of the benchmarks they are proposing, it makes sense, is that the states that do have it recreationally need to start reining in the products that are unsafe, for lack of a better term. And the three kind of bullet points they came up with were you need to have an age gate, which is just an ID.
Okay.
Certain age, 21 is until federally regulated. Everybody kind of agrees 21 will be the age.
Okay.
2, maximum THC quantities. There's a lot of, or have been, retail shops that will have 16 feet of THC drinks on a whole aisle, and there's very little rhyme or reason to how they're stacked or sold. And you'll have 100 milligram watermelon drink right next to a 10 milligram watermelon drink, and they look practically identical, and nobody really is telling anybody to not take the 100 versus the 10, and there's some safety concerns in there.
Yeah.
So I think on a grander scale, the second bullet point was that if the states can get to a maximum of 10 milligrams or even maybe 5 per serving or per drink, per container, I think is really what it's going to be, because there's some people sidestepping that, putting in 100 mils and calling it a one soda can or 10 different servings. You know what I mean? Like there's just no there's no common sense for the end user. They're just trying to push out as much product as possible.
Okay.
And then the third one is to not market to kids. And so whether that is going to be um, losing the whole category of things like gummies and lollipops and stuff like that
Mm.
to something a little bit more medicinally marketable. I don't exactly know what the delivery system will be, but those are the three conversations that the lobbyist was discussing with with lawmakers on how to streamline this so that they can make it as easy as possible for the Fed to get some common sense regulations and do something nationally. And then, there's a whole bunch of conversations about how to detect sobriety and I mean then it just goes on down the line. I mean, and I
Yeah, it's a
think
whole
those
other
are
thing. Yeah.
ideas that will have to be resolved before true federal regulation will come out. But as far as the retailers go, we kept our dosages to 10 milligrams or less. We've got a whole lineup that's 2.5 milligrams balanced with CBD and CBG and ashwagandha and a bunch of fun other additives that make it less about just feeling good, but also about treating your body well. And so there are ways to go about not over leveraging yourself in the market by adding dangerous or unsafe products to your shelves. And I think that common sense is one of those. It might not net you as many dollars immediately, but I think in the long term, it's how the industry is going to grow more safely and probably federally more quickly as well.
In New Jersey, they pulled all the things, all the THC off the shelf. I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago in October because it
Yeah.
was unregulated. And this is where Pennsylvania is. We're 2 years ago compared to New Jersey, just to take one other market. Um, so they pulled it off, and then they regulated. Said it can only be liquor stores, can only be 21 plus, all the things that PA is talking about now. And then most recently, they had everybody pull anything over 10 milligrams per serving off the shelf. So they're kind of
Mm.
crossing bridges as they come to it. PA is just not crossing into bridges. We're still waiting at the first bridge,
We're
and
still waiting at the toll booth
to
on
come
the
up with
side
a
of the river.
master.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to
Watch
solve
all the
every
cars go
problem.
by. Yep.
Yes, but you're not. But the my only issue with that is like there's going to be like Michael was saying, testing sobriety. That's going to be another thing that comes up. There's going to be a lot of things that are already going to come up. So there's going to be no perfect answer to
No.
this yet. But I think people are missing out on. We've had a lot of success with these in other states. Like it's a brand new thing, and I don't know the numbers on it because we're mostly PA guys, but I see how much is going out of the warehouse, and it's mind blowing. Like there are stores in New Jersey that are selling more of this than beer, more of this than Miller Lite or
Well,
whatever.
yeah, you can just drive over the river from Philly and like be at these stores and not even need like a
It's
medical card.
yeah.
Like you can just
So
get right in
yeah,
there. Yeah.
for the hemp derived THC
And all that tax money
cans.
is staying in New Jersey.
Yes.
I know.
And I'm over here now, and let me tell you, I don't want any more tax money. My property taxes alone. I don't want any more tax money going to New Jersey from people who work and live in PA.
Don't get me started about New Jersey. All right. Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, very well. We're doing very well with these things in other states, and we're seeing a lot of progress. And we've kind of been again a step ahead of it. We decided a while back, way before New Jersey pulled the plus 10 milligrams off the shelves. Like 10 milligrams seems like that's the product. That's the product that should be selling. That's the future of these things. And we don't have any 50 milligram cans or any of those things that you used to see, which were kind of adding to the confusion about the whole or adding to people's fears of the whole category. So I think we're in a good spot. We own a couple brands. We carried several different ones. Yeah, and again, the only way to learn about something is to taste it. So that'll be eventually when PA is ready. We're locked and loaded. We've got proof of concept in other states, and looking forward to having some conversations with the web accounts here once they get that figured out up here.
Again, I will offer my services as guinea pigs should the need arise. Just throwing that out there. So, we're talking about the push me pull me with the legislation on this. It's federal, it's state. There's a lot of legalities to this, but like, how should a retailer balance the opportunity of this with the caution of like not running afoul of these rules, maybe before they get written?
So the idea right now in PA, if that's who we're talking about. The most success we've seen is keeping the functional beverages outside the demarcation of your licensed space. Don't run it off the same register, etc. And more importantly, maybe it's the bodega or the corner store or a retail shop that doesn't even have a license, an alcoholic license. And so I think the biggest um, no-no that's come across is combining alcohol and the functional beverages in the same economic function.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically the web license isn't your entire store. It is
Gotcha. Yeah.
a,
Portion.
a place within your store that is state regulated and taxed. So if you have these non-state regulated and taxed items in there, they can certainly have something to say about it. Versus if it's outside that zone, it's a little bit more gray.
I
Or a
follow you.
store that doesn't have a liquor license.
We're talking about all these hot categories and all this new stuff and things like that, but how do you tell the difference between like a short term, as professionals, how do you tell the difference between like a short term fad and things that are like here to stay?
The younger generation we're finding has less product loyalty to an extent. Like say, so a good bottle of wine on the shelf, a younger person will see that and go, I recognize that. I'm going to my in-laws for dinner. I need a good bottle because my father-in-law really likes wine and my mother-in-law really likes Chardonnay or something like that, which is what I like. But I'm going to get that recognizable thing. But as far as what they're drinking themselves, they're kind of all over the board. So I think when you see some of these trends, look at how far they're spreading into all the different generations or all the different people out there drinking specifically wine. So if you see something pop up that looks like it could be a flash in the pan because everybody who's drinking it is only 22, like Four Loko, like that kind of thing. People who are drinking that, you see it a lot of college parties or wherever, what stores are selling, maybe the stores near universities and like that are selling a lot of it. But I mean, it's easy to get wrong also.
To be clear, I have
It's
not had a
easy to
Four
miss a
Loko in like
boat.
a decade more, just to be clear on that one. But yeah, the seltzers kind of make me think of that a little bit too. Like I'll be honest, just as a late consumer, like I thought that was going to be a flash in the pan, and now you look at my fridge and there's no more beer in there. It's all seltzers, and for me, it was just a
Right.
matter of there's just less calories. That was really honestly it. And then after a while, you just get used to it. You
I
know.
think
After
I think that's
25 years in restaurants, that they're probably the first hit by a fad rather than the retail sector. Retail sector tends to be a little bit slower, a little bit more staid. But you just have to kind of stay crouched and ready to pounce, but also to unwind. And that kind of flexibility and management is difficult and time consuming and expensive, and it's not easy. And so to be able to jump on something early is great, but also to know when to unwind and try again.
So, like, I might have a question for you here, actually, Michael. So, what is the most I'm pretending I know what I'm talking about thing people say when they're talking about wine? What's the tell?
I want the dry sweet wine.
Yeah, the sweetest, driest one. Fair enough.
Right. Well, so I think a lot of people have heard or have learned that dry is a good term for wine to use. I want the dry one because sweet has so many different, connotations. But then when it comes right down to it, when, lips meet juice, they want something that's a little bit more recognizable, a little bit less challenging, a little bit more um, easygoing, and that's when sweet is a cure-all, if you would.
Fair enough. So, I asked this question at the end of all our things. I'd like us to look into our crystal balls here a little bit and kind of look to the future of the beverage industry, to the wine industry, to import industry. What does the future of this industry hold for customers and consumers here in Pennsylvania?
I think we're going to see a high water mark on the NA, and I think the bridge will be met in the middle between people who are currently drinking and people who are not drinking, and it's going to find its way to the low proof rather than the no proof. So I think we're going to see a lot more wines that are, German in style that are, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11%. I think we're going to see big dirty martinis turn more towards sherry and tonic kind of things where it's lower alcohol kind of across the board.
Interesting.
I think there will be more RTDs. There will be more alternative packaging, whether it's cardboard cartons, which are, technologically far superior than they were, 10, 20, 30 years ago, or more and more aluminum packaged products, whether it's cocktails or wine. And yeah, I think I agree with Trevor. The low alcohol will actually probably find a stronger foothold rather than absolute zero, or
Interesting.
what some Napa wines can be in the 15-16% range.
I have a bold prediction, it might be
Tell me.
called, if this were a sports show. I think that some of the higher end wines are going to take off as this younger generation graduates into that. I think they've jumped into the alcohol arena extremely responsibly, and I think we haven't really seen that before. I don't know if I can't think of a generation that has been so responsible about it and so health conscious and all this kind of things. So I think they're going to really be able to appreciate the finer wines and things like that. So I'm looking for, maybe a 10-20 year mark, but some of those wineries to really do even more, be more sought after. I think a good example is Chianti. I find a lot of younger people enjoying Chianti when it used to be, especially in this area of the world. Everybody had a thought of Chianti as the wicker basket, and I remember tasting my first taste of wine was Granddad's Chianti. It was on top of his fridge. It had been there for a month and a half, and it was vinegar by this point. So I hate wine until I learn about wine, and I especially hate Chianti. I think there's a whole generation there that just was off-put by Chianti or Lambrusco or some of these things that in Philadelphia, especially in the northeast part of the United States, interesting things and high-end things I think might be a cool thing.
Well, I hear Chianti pairs well with fava beans, so it's
I don't know. I don't know how many of them have seen that movie yet. Maybe that'll be it. They discover that movie, and then that'll be part of it.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. I really appreciate it. Big thanks to Michael, Dan, and Trevor from Vintage Imports for joining us today and sharing their insights on Pennsylvania's beverage industry, retail wine, and the trends that are shaping what customers want to see on the shelves. So to learn more about Vintage Imports, visit vntgimports.com. Thank you for tuning into Shelf Confidence. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. And until next time, I'm John Zimmerman, and this is Shelf Confidence.